In the world that is adoption and long-term foster placement, the people you are placed with are total and complete strangers. Let that sink in for a moment. Complete strangers. When infants and children are given over to those the agency or department has decided upon, the first meeting is literally that, the introduction of strangers. People might say, but this is normal. When we meet people for the first time, they are always strangers. And in time, this is how relationships and families all start. This is true. But the difference with adoption and foster care is, from the very first meeting, the adults are automatically placed in a very intimate, close and vital role for the infant and child. The role of mum and dad. No getting to know each other. No developing a connection and deciding, choosing to from there. From the very first meeting of strangers, their life as mum and dad begins. We as the infant or child do not have a say in the choice. We have to make it work the best way we can. Because if we don't, where will we end up? Yes, for some it grows into a real close family connection. But for many, the connection is never there. So in times where we face the mortality of family and the reality of the importance, need and want of having a real connection with a mum and dad, the absence of this creates very real, very challenging, and very difficult emotional situations. And in those situations, so many of us are completely alone, as what we need is put aside, and the opinions of others take precedence. What we feel is diminished, dismissed and made wrong.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening all, it's Bear here. And in this video, this is one of the adoptions series videos. This video and the next video, I want to step into something that is very personal from my world and my own journey. But I want to do it from the understandings of what one of the biggest questions that nobody answers around adoption and foster care placement and the impacts of it are. What does it mean when you are assigned a parent? When you are handed over to complete strangers who by all pretense are your mother and father. In the majority of this cycle, we generalize it, we cope with it, we put them in those perspectives, we follow the rules, and some of us develop connections and relationships to them. But these next two videos, I want to break down when you start to hit the walls that are around this as well. In my own personal life, my adopted mother is in the final stages of palliative care. She's passing away. Inaudible. And I'm not mourning the loss of her the way a person would think you would be because of my adoption and my childhood. But what I'm mourning is it didn't have to be this way. One of the primary motivations for the adoption side of this channel is to bring the awareness and the understanding so it is not this way, where adoptions don't fail to the degree and number that they do. And that we are understood of the burdens we carry and have to process and work out ourselves, because in truth, in the felt sense, if you haven't lived this, you don't understand it. She's not my mother, never has been. She hated everything that I am because through her own journey to adoption, I was supposed to fix those emotions. And when I, from my background, cried, an infant crying, being picked up by a stranger, reflected back at her that I wasn't going to fix those emotions, set the course for my childhood in this household. Now that she's passing, and the responses from my adoptive father and the way he just wants nothing to do with the emotional aspects of it, bring to the forefront the subject of this video and the next one is, what does it mean when you are assigned a parent? When you have a biological connection, yes, parents so often step out, but they're still biologically your parent. There are still mechanisms there. But when you're not, the isolation that comes from that, because no one gets the complexity of the emotions involved. Where society says these are your mum and dad, and you're supposed to mourn them like they are your biological mum and dad, but they're not, because they're not biologically my parents. I was assigned to them. But I'm expected to mourn them when they're passing and going through these final stages of dying. And everything that comes through that, and everything you have to do as a result of that. But at the expense of my own questions and what I am feeling and what I'm trying to understand and process. These two videos are difficult, but I felt, and I've been arguing for a week and a half whether I should make them or not. But I've gone, screw it, I'm going to. Because one, it is my voice out there, but it's also showing that everything I've posted on this channel is from lived experience. It's not from a fucking book. Sorry for my language. The complexity around the rules we are given to comply with assigned parenting, with parents fulfilling those rules, those roles, and how that impacts the way we process these moments is very difficult to unpack. Now, over the many years, I've explored and understood the way trauma flows, the way preverbal early childhood and everything I talk about on this channel works. I have resources and skills at my disposal to navigate this a lot better than a lot that I have known that personally have gone through this. This is one of the motivations for making these videos, is because I've watched other adoptees that I've personally known go through this time. And I've lost a few of them because that was the only way they could deal. They stepped out completely. And that is a part of this because of how isolating it is. When you are aware in every emotional fundamental sense that the people that raised you are not actually your mother and father, they were assigned that role. And if they've earned that through how they've interacted with you, awesome. But for all us adoptees and those in long-term care placements where they haven't earned that, how do we process that loss? And where do those threads go within us? As I said, for me, the last week, so much has been around, it didn't have to be this way. It's remembering all the moments that I reached out trying to change, trying to show, trying to open up, that were violently or abusively rejected, or through humiliation rejected, creating the situation of this relationship. And from an outsider's perspective, a lot of those instances wouldn't be recognized as that. But when you come from a removal base, they are received as that. When you are dismissed in the beginning sentence of trying to open up a way of explaining the difference between how you feel to the way they feel, because we're not biologically related, is a rejection. And it feeds that jar that is the fog. It feeds how we are isolated and how we separate from those that are raising us. So much around this is unnecessary. And all of it revolves around how those initial moments of connection unfold and the reasons behind them. And as I said in numerous videos, they're adults, we were kids. In this journey that I'm going through now, that so many adoptees do and so many who have been in long-term care placements, it even is more isolating for us because there is no family, because we were taken from it. There is no support base that we can connect to, that can emotionally relate through all these shared experiences, because we were taken from it. The isolation that this journey creates breaks a lot of us and places us also in that same space when we were in the box just after removal, the box with no lid. to understand what to do with this, what I'm doing every moment is finding avenues to explain it to, one close friend that I have, who she is doing everything she can to try to understand it. I'm also doing what I need to from my own side of things, but I'm also looking at breaking my own patterns. Normally I would just shut down, withdraw, and process this completely mentally, internally, and not engage in any way, shape or form. That's one of the other motivations for these couple of videos. But I also want to share this because I know others that are going through it, and in my age demographic of adoption, there's so many of us are facing, our adopted parents are in their 80s and 90s. And if we start to try to explore for our biological family, we find tombstones. So we are in this unique place of absolute isolation, which in the world of trauma is the worst place to be, because there is no co-regulation. There is nothing we can connect to help us process this. All we can do is try to understand it and build and work with ways of having some layers of real connection. We can do the superficial crap till the cows come home. It's not going to touch this. I'm talking about having those real moments of empathy, those real moments of connection with some close people to help us anchor the processes so that we are not just feeding the jar that is the fog, the jar that is all that is our removal trauma and everything our young nervous system went through back then. That is well and truly at the core and is always going to be there. We don't need permission to explain or feel what we're feeling. We need to work on the understanding of it for ourselves. For this video, that is the key message. It's not, we don't need permission. I don't need permission to explain what I'm feeling and why I'm responding the way I do. In the next video, I'm going to be recording it straight after this one, but I'll release them a week apart. I want to go into why. I thank you guys for your patience in watching this video, and please understand where I'm coming from with this and the personal nature of this, but also understand this is not just about me. I don't know an adoptee who has a not less than positive experience with their adoption that doesn't hit these walls in their own interpretation and in their own way. As always, I love you guys' comments and feedback. Please be mindful, please be safe, and I'll see you next time. Hope.